Hello and welcome to the only podcast where the ability to speak does not make us intelligent, and yet we keep doing it. I'm Matt.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Max.
And this is Force for Thought.
That was good. I like
Thank
that
you.
one.
I feel like I haven't been hitting the jokes as much. I feel like I say them, I think they're hilarious, and you guys don't laugh.
Literally just watched Phantom 2, and now I'm like mad at myself for not thinking of that one.
Yeah.
Like, that's good.
It's perfect for us because it is the truth. Hello and welcome back to Force for Thought, everybody. So today we're talking about repitching the trilogy. So this is looking back in the 90s. If you were to rewrite, not even rewrite the prequel trilogy, but if you were to sit down and write a prequel trilogy to Star Wars, the original trilogy, what would that have looked like? So today we're going to go around and pitch kind of what we would have done. We went pretty in depth with our sequel trilogy pitch. So today we are going to, some of us have more top level, I believe. So you're making me nervous the way you look so excited.
Because last time that was our first pitch was a sequel trilogy, right? Because it wasn't redoing the sequel trilogy.
Sorry.
This is redoing the prequel trilogy. But then I was
Correct.
thinking, like, all right, I got to think like it's 1995. I just have enormous pride for those two standing towers in New York City.
Jesus.
That's what everyone was thinking in the 90s, right?
Yeah, that was hindsight. Really could have. Oh my God, Luke, really threw me for that one. So today we're talking about the prequel trilogy, and I know we've been doing Phantom Menace all month, and we have 5 weeks because May is, we're blessed with the 5th week for Phantom Menace week this year, which is great. But for thinking of the prequel trilogy as a whole, what's your guys' relationships with the prequel trilogies? Since we're going to be undoing them today.
It's pretty tied to toys and play for me because I was a kid. So, I know that the movies aren't technically that well made for a lot of different reasons, but they always just hold such a special place in my heart because of all the fun I had with and around them as a kid.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. I'm a 90s baby, so, these movies hold a very near and dear part of my heart. And I found when I was trying to remake them that I'm very protective of them. And I think it was clear to me which ones in the prequel trilogy I like and I don't like, because my episode 1 is very different. Episode 2 is a little different, and spoiler alert, my episode 3 is still pretty much Revenge of the Sith.
Yes, that's honestly, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, mine's, the third movie's more top level for me. It's really hard to go in depth, because I think I went way too in depth with our original pitch to the sequel trilogy, and I was like, it's so much to listen to and go on and on, so I went more a little top level this time, so it's not as specific with character names or anything as well.
I did the same thing, and it's interesting. This was a really fun assignment to go over because there are certain notes that you have to hit that the prequel trilogy did hit, and so trying to think of a way to redo that or do it better, I'm just like, really feel like Revenge of the Sith nailed this one.
Yeah, Revenge of the Sith turns out it's a pretty good movie. So with no further adu, Luke Taylor, do you want to start like how we always go around when someone hosts? We kind of go.
So I did write an outline for a whole trilogy, but I started with just notes on what I wanted it to do differently.
Certainly.
So first of those, Anakin and Obi-Wan from the beginning. I love Qui-Gon; he's my favorite Jedi, but it just makes sense to have Anakin and Obi-Wan from the beginning.
All in agreement, I feel like.
Jedi together, and Anakin can still be his Padawan. That still tracks and makes sense, but I think that was, it's not that heavily implied from the original trilogy that it would be obvious that it's about them together, but I think it's pretty obvious now. And then also Palpatine starts I wrote overtly preying on Anakin, but that sounds kind of dirty. But Palpatine starts trying to corrupt Anakin in episode 1 because there's elements of that. Palpatine says, well, watch your career with great interest, but I think they could go more aggressive. Padme is never a queen, just a senator, but she still has the handmaidens, and because I really like the handmaidens. But Padme being a queen, just more confusing than it's worth. The whole Leia being the daughter of the Queen of Alderaan and the Queen of Naboo, just be done with that.
I agree.
I am tired of
I think
that.
we talked a little bit about this last week too, but it's weird because you just inherently think that, that Leia is a princess because her mom was. We're like, well, no, she was given up, and it's coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's very odd.
Yes, and it's just worth more than it costs more than it's worth.
I love that call.
The trilogy focuses around Palpatine's rise to power. That makes sense. The Clone Wars. That was name dropped in the original trilogy.
It
and
was
it
indeed.
sounds way cooler than it actually ended up being.
Yep.
So in my
You
mind,
shut your fucking mouth.
I think it would be cooler if it was a war fought by using clones. The cloners are
Oh.
able to clone anyone for a price, and the Sith are using these clones to infiltrate governments. They're like kidnapping people and replacing them with clones that they can use to destabilize governments and planets. And so Palpatine uses his Sith powers to be able to be cloned dozens of times, or maybe even hundreds, and dispatches these clones to these other planets and starts infiltrating their governments personally. And then eventually in movie 3, Order 66, is when all of his clones say to their respective governments and their missions that, you know, I've done all I can here. I need to go back to the capital and start to affect change on a more grand scale.
Mhm.
And then he, you know, goes and becomes the chancellor. And then with the support of all of these other planets that his clones have garnered support for, he is able to use that to leverage into an empire and become the emperor. When Luke and Leia are born, they are separated, and Leia is taken by Sabe. I think that would be really cool. And there was a lot of times where there was something that I was like, I want it to make more sense in this pitch than it does in the original, in the prequels that we got. But there's some stuff that just doesn't make any sense at all in the prequels that we have.
Yeah.
Padme dies for no reason at all. I can't fix that. George Lucas got it right. She just needs to die. But then she could be taken by Sabe, who I think should have a more prominent part in the trilogy as a whole. That's Padme's handmaiden decoy from The Phantom Menace. And she's in books and comics a lot, and she's great. But if she's taken by Sabe, then that would make good upon the inconsistency that Leia remembers her birth mother and Luke never remembered his mother, because, you know, when Return of the Jedi came out, it's like they were separated at birth, and Leia went with her mother and Luke went with Owen and Beru, and that's how that happened. But this way, you know, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. So Padme killed by Palpatine, which is kind of a fan theory that Palpatine drained Padme's life force to give to Anakin. I think that would be cool if it was true and they could do it a little bit more overtly. And Obi-Wan is still able to escape with Luke. And I don't have it ironed out how Obi-Wan knows about Luke and not Leia. I think if I had more time, I could probably figure it out, but I just didn't get that much time. But that bothers me also in the original trilogy, that it just seems like such a low-hanging plot hole to fix. And then
What's the plot hole? That Obi-Wan doesn't know about Leia?
in Empire Strikes Back, when he says that boy is our last hope, and Yoda says no, there is another.
So the assumption is Obi-Wan just didn't know. That's interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
I
and
don't
then-
have the same read on it. I don't think my read is better because I think it's kind of implied sexism that he was just like, that boy, that's our only chance. And Yoda's like, well, hold on, there's another. And Obi-Wan's just like, no, we're so fucking screwed.
Yes, we are just talking about implications. How does my camera look? I just bumped it with my foot.
Kick it a little more that way.
A lot of toe action going on.
There you
Clicking with the computer.
I know. I gotta calm down. My last note: Beru and Padme are sisters.
So it's
putting him
his
with
actual aunt.
Yes, which is a step aunt in the real Star Wars. So
Is that step or is that in-law?
step is
Aunt Beru to Luke?
yeah
Luke's
Luke's grandma or Luke's. So it's Anakin's stepsister in law.
So it's
But
both.
no, aunts and uncles don't have in-law and an uncle in-law.
I guess that's true, yeah. Okay.
Um,
Well, that is confusing. So you want to clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, it would just make more sense if Beru and Padme were sisters. And also, continuity-wise, why would you have Luke with Anakin's family? Hide him with Padme's family, at least.
Hmm.
So those are all my high-level notes. The specific movies, I don't want to just read this. But here I go. Movie 1, Act 1. Anakin and Obi-Wan training on Coruscant. We learn more about the Jedi and are introduced to Palpatine and Padme in the Senate. They are both senators to Naboo because I like the dynamic of both of them as senators. I like everything that they do as senators in the prequels. Like I said before, Padme being queen just creates too many questions. Palpatine orchestrated Naboo gets invaded, and Padme is given Anakin and Obi-Wan to go help, and Palpatine orchestrated Anakin and Obi-Wan to go help because Palpatine is starting to turn Anakin from a very young age, at least very early stage in the movies. Act 2, Anakin and Padme start developing a relationship. They're not children. They are, 18, 20, 25, same age as like Luke and Leia in the original trilogy. So, 18? Their ship gets damaged and they have to land on Tatooine, but because they're sort of close and Padme's sister Beru lives there with her husband Owen. So they go to Tatooine, not out of just happenstance, but because Padme's sister lives there. And then Anakin pod races to escape still. Similar to Tech in the Bad Batch. It's like, he just enters and wins. And that's how they do that.
In a much shorter fashion, it seems like.
So you're keeping...
It doesn't need
You're
to
completely changing Phantom, but you're still keeping like the worst scene.
Yeah, what?
I like the pod race. They
So
get some...
much so you would do nothing else different.
At least make it a little more music. Say John Williams gets a big score during the race this time.
No, I like just the Sebulba's pod racer. The whoa,
Okay.
whoa, 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 whoa.
The entire time.
Act
Perfect.
3, they get to Naboo. Padme infiltrates and saves the day while Maul fights Obi-Wan/Anakin. Obi-Wan gets taken out like in episode 3 with Dooku, where he's like out of the fight but still not dead, and then captures Anakin. Anakin uses a super cool and unique force move to kill Maul and escape, and he doesn't tell anyone that Maul tried to capture him, but Anakin knows that the Sith are after him. I think it'd be cool if the Jedi took more of a moral high ground, so to speak, about killing people, with the exception of Anakin, because they kind of get into that, and there's that scene in the Clone Wars where that one guy is like, who's gonna kill me and save all the people and brand themselves a cold-blooded killer, and then Anakin does it. And he's like, oh, well, they were going to take down the ship. And that's a great moment, but we could have more of that in the movies and less of Jedi killing people, especially Obi-Wan. Movie 2. I would like to bring in Alderaan, the king and queen, Bail and Breha, as we know them.
Love it.
And their advisor, Count Dooku.
Oh.
Introduce Anakin and Obi-Wan. They're still training, but they're now basically equals. Palpatine tries to have Padme assassinated still, and Obi-Wan and Anakin begin to investigate. For the life of me, I could not figure this out in my head, how Padme being assassinated ties into the Cloners arc, and it doesn't really tie that well in Attack of the Clones.
It just happens to be that bounty hunter
Yes,
who was assigned to do it.
Yeah.
Right. It happens to be the one bounty hunter that was assigned to assassinate Padme is also the one bounty hunter that all the clones are based on. And Count Dooku just didn't want to get a second bounty hunter in the mix. So you can do something as McClunky as that, but the investigation uncovers the cloners. They have several people hostage, including the Alderaan king. So they go to Alderaan and find the king there, but the queen confides in them that the king has been acting differently lately. And so they drop off Breha at Beru and Owens to keep her safe so they can have a relationship so that, the parents of Luke and Leia know each other. And then Anakin can sense that the king is a clone because of his awesome force powers. They talk a lot about Anakin's force powers and how he's the chosen one, but we never really get to see it.
Yeah.
And I'm not suggesting anything specific. This is a broad strokes pitch, but I would like to see something more specific. They report back to the Coruscant and the council, and they knight Anakin, which I also would have liked to see in live action. It happened in a book now relatively recently, but I think that is such low-hanging fruit for fun plot stuff.
Rise of the Red Blade was fantastic.
Act 3 of movie 2, Padme and Anakin and Obi-Wan return to Alderaan and fight Dooku, who is a Sith apprentice to Sidious. He was there as the first sort of infiltration of the Sith using the clone technique. Bail Organa's clone was the first clone that the Sith are trying this take over governments with, and Dooku was there just to kind of grease the wheels. So they out Bail as being a clone, dispatch him, and then fight Dooku. And then Anakin also kills Dooku after he talks about how his master has great plans for Anakin. They save Alderaan, and Padme and the Queen become closer, and they return to Coruscant and learn that the Clone Wars have begun. The cloners have moved their operations, and there have been reports of dozens, if not hundreds, of planets claiming to have had their elected officials replaced with clones. And then movie 3, I have not fleshed out all that well, but it's the Clone Wars, but this different Clone Wars that I've laid out. So Padme is pregnant, and Anakin is scared because the Sith want him, and they can use his child to get to him. So they try to keep it a secret. Anakin and Obi-Wan are on a mission to stabilize a planet. That's how the movie opens in my mind, and Anakin can still sense who is and isn't a clone, and they out someone and save a planet, essentially. They return to Coruscant, and that is as far as I got. Act 2, Anakin is seduced to the dark side, and he and Obi-Wan duel on Mustafar, and then Palpatine captures Padme before she gives birth to try to steal the baby to use to get Anakin on the dark side for good. Kit Fisto and Yoda find them and hold off Palpatine as she gives birth, and then Yoda takes Luke and gives him to Obi-Wan later, and Sabe takes Leia. And I realize as I got to the end of my pitch that I never included Sabe in movies 1 or 2, really, and I would like to, but I just didn't have time to include them. But what do you guys think?
I'll let Matt go because there are some shocking similarities between mine and yours.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, me and you have the same exact movie as well. It's all just no. I mean, not really, but it is funny. I think we all kind of thought the same thing. Which is why we all like Star Wars. I think very similarly and yet differently. No, I liked it a lot. I think you held a lot of the plot holes to a high standard of what we see through the prequel trilogy and things that in your knowledge of the books and stuff too, and even you know, like Anakin getting knighted. I think like things like that, like your knowledge of the more modern books that have taken the prequels into consideration and being able to see those off the jump would be really interesting to see and create a whole new world that we've never seen before within the prequel era and, you know, do it almost perfect, I think, from the start.
I really like the idea of kind of flipping the Clone Wars on its head instead of having an army of clones to do more like a secret invasion approach. I think that is really cool.
I also love those like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I kind of have a similar idea with the Clone Wars a little bit differently, but like I love the infiltration, kind of like taking people one by one and infiltrating these governments by using different people and everything. It's those Invasion of the Body Snatchers type like body switching movies freak me out. Like that Paul Rudd show on Netflix when it's like he clones himself.
Yeah.
Freaks me out. I don't like that idea of.
I forget what that show's called.
Same.
I kind of remember that too now. I usually
It was
have no
only
idea
it was only okay.
what you're talking about. Max, what was your pitch like?
So my movie.
I also love the Dooku. Sorry, that was one last thing. I love your inclusion of Dooku. That was great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I thought you did kind of incorporate a lot of those characters really well. Mine does not. Mine's a lot more high level. I don't get into quite as much detail as yours, but that's probably one thing that if I had more time to flesh this out, I would try to incorporate a lot of those characters to do stuff like that. That was really good. So mine starts the Emperor has been deposed after a power-hungry and ambitious politician uses galactic unrest over a constantly deadlocked Senate as a guise for new leadership. Many share the new Emperor's frustrations over political stalemate. However, some are still concerned over the new Emperor's methods. I pictured that to be something of a crawl. And then we see the Emperor threaten political opponents' families in private in order to pass through his legislation, so there's no doubt that this new Emperor is evil. One of the threatened politicians, Bail Organa, seeks the help of a friend, the head of the Jedi Order, named Radius Maximus, a.k.a. Rad Max. The name's an alt. We can change it, but I'll refer to him as Rad Max for now. I picture him as being bald, but with a big beard, maybe glasses.
You know,
We'll
that's
see.
funny. I was thinking
Human?
like Radius
Yeah,
Mattius,
human.
who has like thick rim glasses, kind of like kooky hair.
That's so similar. It's funny.
Rad Mad, for sure.
Rad Max. Rad Luke is in here as well.
It's great. That will complete the trill.
Rad Luke doesn't fit as well. I'm so embarrassed.
And then we see the Jedi Order. And so in my prequel trilogy, we see the Jedi Order doesn't exist in established temples or high-rises, but are actually a collective of nomadic travelers, adventurers, and philosophers.
Ooh, I like that.
That makes so much sense.
It
That's
does.
That's great.
And the three Jedi that we have to include are Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Anakin. And I feel like those are kind of like the descriptions that I had in mind, right? Where Obi-Wan is a traveler, Anakin's an adventurer, and Yoda's more of a philosopher. Rad Max shares the politician's concerns over the Emperor, but assures Bail the Jedi are pacifists.
Sorry, who is Rad Max again?
He's the head of the Jedi Order.
Oh, okay.
The High Master? Is that what?
Grandmaster.
Grandmaster. And so he assures him that the Jedi are pacifists, not warriors, and that they cannot help. However, one Jedi overhears the conversation and offers Bail his help. He has disagreed with many tenets of the Jedi Order and believes the Jedi should help. This Jedi is Sheev Palpatine. So a big difference in my prequel trilogy is that Palpatine is a fallen Jedi.
That's also great.
A vote takes place in the Senate in which Bail casts a tie-breaking vote against the Emperor's legislation.
Who's Bail?
Bail Organa, the politician that was threatened.
Okay.
A hit team of bounty hunters and assassins go after Bail on behest of this emperor, but Sheev kills them, protecting Bail. Radmax finds out about it, and he disagrees with Sheev's ways and banishes him from the order. Sheev leaves. I'm going to refer to him as Palpatine.
Yeah,
Palpatine leaves to establish his own order, known as the Sith. Bail pleads with Radmax, saying he was only protecting him and that the banishment is unfair, but unfortunately his requests fall upon deaf ears. Although disagreeing with Palpatine's ways, Radmax does eventually recognize the threat to Bail's life and reluctantly agrees to let 2 Jedi protect him, Master Obi-Wan Kenobi and his apprentice Anakin Skywalker. And then, kind of broad strokes for the rest of the movie, Palpatine establishes a new order known as the Sith, where he kind of poaches other Jedi who've kind of been disillusioned with the order. Anakin Skywalker meets and falls in love with Bail Organa's daughter, Padme. The Sith wage war against the Jedi. Bail and Padme help the Jedi, and the Jedi win this Jedi-Sith war, but Palpatine does eventually escape. However...
Wait. I'm sorry. I stopped listening as soon as you said Padme was Bail's daughter, because that does make sense. So Leia just grows up with her grandparents on her mother's side and takes the name Organa, because that's her mother's maiden name.
Yes.
That is so simple. Why do we got to make it so complicated? That is a great move. All right, so... Go back to there in your
So this new Sith order wage war against the Jedi. Bail and Padme help the Jedi order. The Jedi eventually win this Jedi and Sith war, but Palpatine does escape. However, not without first catching the attention of the Emperor. The Emperor asks for Palpatine's help in fulfilling the will of the people, and in return can provide Palpatine a new Sith army, an army composed entirely of clones of Palpatine. And then it kind of ends with Palpatine being cloned, and that goes into episode 2. All these episodes have the same names, so episode 2 is Attack of the Clones. And the whole movie is the Clone Wars. So we see the Jedi are struggling and losing the war and seek the help of the Empire, not realizing that the Emperor is helping Palpatine and vice versa. Emperor manipulates Congress into further deadlock, assuring the Jedi receive no help. The Jedi slowly lose the Clone Wars until the few that are left are forced to disband and go into hiding. Many across the galaxy become disillusioned with the Empire over their refusal to help, notably including Anakin Skywalker. Padme and Anakin are married in secret, and after winning the Clone Wars, Palpatine then sets his sights higher and overthrows the Emperor, murdering him. So episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine is now the Emperor. Palpatine visits the cloning facility on Exegol and has them shut down their operations until further notice. Some sort of lip service is made to the final order, but Palpatine says not until the time is right. Yoda, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Radmax are among the handful of surviving Jedi. They stage a plot to kill the now Emperor Palpatine. However, Anakin has been having visions of Padme dying in childbirth. The Jedi go to the Emperor's homeworld on Mustafar to kill him. They manage to get the upper hand, and when they have Palpatine on the ropes, Palpatine senses Anakin's worry. He convinces him he can save Padme. Radmax is upset once he finds out about this marriage. And Palpatine points out that Radmax has the same ambitions as Palpatine and that he intends to take over as Emperor if they are to kill Palpatine. Anakin then falls to the dark side and kills Radmax and becomes Sith.
Ooh. Why do I feel bad that Radmax died? You just introduced this character.
Because he's here for 3 movies.
I somehow have a strong connection to Radmax as well.
I know, it's weird. It's something about his appearance, I think.
And then the rest is pretty much Revenge of the Sith.
It's like I can see him in my mind's eye right now talking.
I know, it's weird.
He wears a baseball hat?
The only character in Star Wars that wears a baseball hat?
The rest is pretty much Revenge of the Sith. So Anakin then fights Obi-Wan on Mustafar. Palpatine fights Yoda. Anakin loses and is horribly burned, turning into Darth Vader, yada, yada, yada. However, at some point, Order 66 comes, and instead of the Jedi Purge, it is the Sith Purge, in which all of the Sith clones kill themselves, making sure Palpatine's rule is unchallenged. And then I really don't want to add this, because I think it would ruin part of the original trilogy, but since we're having fun, I would then end a post-credit scene in which we jump to Endor, and we see all the rebels celebrating, the Empire is done, yada, yada, yada. And then after that, we somehow cut to Exegol, and we see the cloning facilities, and we see the final order begin by panning over to a vat of a cloned Emperor Palpatine, who then opens his eyes.
Nice.
and it helps lead into the sequel
I
trilogy.
hate that part, but I got goosebumps all the same.
That's what I said.
I
That.
know.
I said like it probably ruins the original trilogy, which I think it would. But you know what? I'm gonna throw it in there.
That is fun. I loved that.
Yeah, so did I. I liked it a lot, Max.
Good. I'm glad.
You know, I don't think it ruins the original trilogy more than the prequels do already. I'm not saying that the prequels ruin the trilogy, but there's enough plot holes and weird things that it brings up consistently that I think that, like, if the Emperor opened his eyes and it's a clone and that's the only difference in the original trilogy is that implication, I think that is far less egregious than some things that prequels currently do for us.
Mm-hmm. It's this whole episode, honestly, is just such a fun creative exercise that I was trying to think outside the box, but I don't think I got there. Max was thinking outside the box. Like, the idea of the Sith being a splinter faction of the Jedi makes total sense, but my brain could not go there without hearing that.
No, I
first,
think you
and
did.
It's so interesting.
I think you did a great job. Maybe we should have Luke come on and help write our Star Wars show, because now I feel like all three of us can do it together.
It's a very small thing, but one thing that I also made a point of doing was extending the timeline of the Empire, because I want to imagine an empire of multiple emperors, kind of like the Roman Empire, right?
Mhm.
With a long, complicated history and stuff like that, because I always think about how we focus so much in Star Wars on this timeline of the Empire, and this Empire only lasted like 24
25
years.
years,
Yeah, so it's like, make that longer. Make the fall of the Empire significantly more impactful.
One of my
that's great.
exact thoughts, same thing with the division of the Sith and stuff too. I think we were all on the same page, which is very odd. Like, you feel like the three of us did not talk about what we wanted to do for our pitch, and yet I think we all came to the table with semi-similar ideas.
Because there are things that we know from the original trilogy that the prequel trilogy has to hit, and all of those, to I guess me and Luke, are basically happen in Revenge of the Sith, because we kept a lot of that.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm still just blown away by your pitch. All the listeners right now have such an advantage over me that they can go back and rewind and listen to it right now, but I have to wait months for this episode to come out and hear it again.
I'll send you my notes.
It was captivating.
Yeah.
Matt, I'm excited to hear yours.
Well,
Especially if you keep saying it's so similar to mine and Max's. It's gonna
I'm
be a
not-
slam dunk.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's better. I'm just saying it is some similarity. So, you know what's funny is I left out a lot of the dark side stuff in Palpatine, so I didn't have a ton of time to do this. So, as we all know, the logical prequel trilogy would focus on Obi-Wan, Anakin / Darth Vader's journey to knowing each other and kind of eventually separating. So this would also take place, the Clone Wars, I think, is one of the biggest things, like you said, like within the original trilogy, is like that seems like a logical place to go. But instead, this would be the Republic versus the Empire, who has been a long-standing empire. And so they are, I'm not sure, I would say maybe Palpatine still is the Emperor at that point, though, in my mind. And the Clone Wars, in this case, would mean it's fighting against or for the process of cloning the Jedi. And so much like, I think, yours, Matt, or like kind of like yours, Luke, like being able to clone the Jedi is the whole thing. And so is this going to be correct or not? And whoever obviously is going to get more Jedi will have more powerful sides. And so that's what the Empire wants to do, is clone the Jedi in order to have more Jedi on their sides, because they don't have any right now.
So the Jedi are like neutral in the Empire versus Republic war?
They would not be. So they were, I guess, technically the Jedi, if they were, right? Not every single person is part of this military. And so in my mind, the Jedi would be more of they're a piece of the puzzle within the military. They're not generals. They're not like built around this one person. Like when we see in Attack of the Clones, right? It's like Ki-Adi-Mundi or Kit Fisto. They get dropped off. They're the center of attention, and they have a bunch of clones around them. This would be, they're just another piece of the puzzle. They're equally as important as other members of the military, but they can use their skills a little differently. So they're kind of taught not to be, which much like in the Star Wars, the universe that we know, they're taught not to be overzealous, I guess, as well within what they do. So it also in the in this world, they're not really much like akin to priests, kind of how they are, how they're living, right? They're just kind of like in the military, so they're gone for long amounts of time, and they're moving around a lot. And also, this is a very minimal thing, but the style that I would do would be very much in the original trilogy style, because I think the prequels the prequel trilogy that we get now is, though we love the costumes, is very different stylistically. So I would love to make it the same style as the original trilogy, but less dirty. So when things are like beige or off-white, now they're stark white. So it's, again, just that visual representation of things. So anyway, movie 1. In movie 1, we meet Obi-Wan, who comes from a long line of Jedi and military men. His family lives in the country, and he is finally allowed to join and begin training to fight of what the Clone Wars will be, which are only right now currently whispers, and the Empire, who is a known faction but is currently spreading its fear across the galaxy. At the same time, a slightly younger Anakin Skywalker, so again, years difference, not like a decade's difference here, in my mind.
Slightly younger than Obi-Wan. I thought you meant slightly younger than Phantom Menace Anakin.
No, slightly younger than Obi-Wan. We're talking like 3 years or so. So a slightly younger Anakin is a homeless scoundrel who goes around Coruscant living off of and stealing from people's vulnerability, using his powers that he's fully aware of having and taking advantage of them. Getting caught, he is given a choice by using his powers for good and joining the military or getting sent away, obviously to a prison. He chooses to go to the military. So simultaneously, we'll also have a kind of a B storyline where we understand the bigger picture that the galaxy is in danger, following a character much like Qui-Gon Jinn here, which is when we're getting more of the outside perspective, kind of this bigger mission within the team. So then a lot of this story will take place within this military school where Anakin and Obi-Wan end up meeting, and they're practicing learning how to be not only people within the military, but also Jedi. This is where Yoda will work then too. So instead of like a high council, we're basically in this military school where they're learning and understanding how to be Jedi, but also become, again, a piece of that puzzle within this military. Again, that's where they meet Yoda, and this is where they also learn that they always need a failsafe for every single plan. Simultaneously, okay, so Act 2, Obi-Wan and Anakin meet and train together. Not only in the Force and soldiers, they merely play a part of the game of chess, like we said. Here they introduce Yoda, who helps train them begrudgingly. He's looked down upon since he's a bit of a kook, but he's every student's favorite teacher, which I feel like is such a relatable thing. Everyone's like, that's the person. During the training, though, much like, pulling influences from other wars and things too, so in training, they are put into a squadron who will be very close. It'll be like a group of like 4 or 5 people, which is Obi-Wan, Anakin, and a couple other people. Again, haven't fully fleshed out. But while they're getting close, there's a massive attack, much like Pearl Harbor, kind of bringing in other wars and stuff. Original trilogy had a lot of World War II influence, so I go a little, kind of continue on that train. And so in the midst of learning all of this, they're thrust into fighting the battle that they knew was coming. And so now they're thrust into this war, and then, they'll start small on the ground, but eventually get into this big galactic mission. And then, that'll be like majority of Act 3. And then we end with the group settling into a town where they met Padme, who will assist and aid them on their mission, kind of like a Mon Mothma type character for the story.
So Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Yoda are like the main trio?
Yeah.
That is so cool. That's so fun. I love this.
I just wanted Yoda to be the teacher, but also being able to teach Anakin and Obi-Wan simultaneously, and really seeing, kind of like Lost Stars a bit. One can go left, one can go right a little bit.
That's great. It also gives more credence to the, there you'll meet Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed me. That's not necessarily a plot hole with the prequels that we got, but
it bulks it up.
It's not like Yoda was his master. It definitely implies, I think.
And
I feel like by making the 3 of them a trio instead of more of like Anakin and Obi-Wan a duo, I feel like it does make the original trilogy so much more impactful when you have like Obi-Wan and Yoda without Anakin there, but with his son there filling that third.
And then also, why does Yoda have to be the Grand Master of all the Jedi? Why can't he just be like a more normal Jedi?
Yeah, I like this role a lot, where he's just like a kooky teacher, but he's like everyone's favorite. They're like, oh, Yoda. Love
and I
that
wanted
guy.
to set
Please continue. I'm so excited.
I wanted to set the boundary or the foundation that Anakin started off as like a scoundrel. Right? So like you have Obi-Wan coming from this homestead. Probably his brother will play a big part of this movie as well as trilogy.
Really? Is he in it?
No, I didn't. Man, why did I do this?
I tried so hard to include Obi-Wan's brother in mine. I couldn't figure it out.
But I wanted this path of like maybe sometimes people are built to just do the thing, unfortunately, that they're set out to do without knowing it. So maybe like, Anakin turns good and turns bad again. He was doing things for himself. But anyway, during the second movie, the group continued their mission to defeat the Empire. Obi-Wan and Anakin have grown closer and have continued to train under Yoda's supervision. but worries the Empire is getting stronger than they could have ever realized. And this is presumably going to jump a couple of years, maybe as well. Maybe not even maybe just like a full year or so, just some time jumps. In Act 2, the group now separates. So obviously they're on this big galactic mission, but again, very top level. In Act 2, the group separates, making the world even bigger. Anakin ventures out with Padme, where they fall in love, and eventually are assisted by C-3PO and R2-D2, two droids they pick up, which are Padme's connections. This way, Obi-Wan does not see them, does not understand them.
Oh, there we go.
Who they are, because they're doing a mission by themselves. So if Anakin and Padme are together with C-3PO and R2-D2.
Love putting a nice little bow on those things.
Yes.
That's good.
Here is where we get a sense that Anakin uses powers for bad instead of good. His natural ways he would go back to. Obi-Wan takes over the squadron, which I mentioned earlier, as Yoda goes to Coruscant, where he meets with the leaders of the military. Along within the leaders of the military, he is kind of coaxed to join this council of Jedi who have started an uprising within the military where they believe they should be in power and be the leaders instead of just a bigger piece of this puzzle.
They think the Jedi should be in power and the leaders?
Yes.
Okay.
Like other fellow Jedi. And so this is where the Jedi begin to basically destroy themselves. And that's kind of movie 2. Again, they're all kind of separated. Obi-Wan is taking over the squadron and kind of leading for the first time. Yoda is over on Coruscant, attempting to warn, I guess, the rest of everybody that the Empire is bigger and a bigger power is coming than they ever could have realized, while simultaneously uncovering kind of this seedy underworld that these Jedi are uprising within the government themselves to take power of the military.
I think that's a much more realistic arc for the Jedi, where it's like you might have some that are a little more principled, but a large faction who are just like, no, I'm a mother effing Jedi Knight. Like,
yeah.
Have you seen the stuff that I can do? I should be in charge of this shit.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to be able to break through and start from being part of the puzzle to eventually a lot of these people being like, no, we are gods, basically, within this world. So in movie 3, the group come back together, the same but different. And this is presumably a couple years have passed, so now Padme and Anakin have 2 children, like Luke and Leia. Very babies, though.
Are they allowed to have children?
Yes, they're again very unpriest-like, very much like in the military. So they're
Okay.
able to go off and do whatever. It's just they're able to move
I kept
around.
thinking about that sequence in the prequels while making my pitch of George Lucas sitting somewhere thinking like, oh, what if all the Jedi are celibate? Like, why, George?
Yeah.
Why you gotta do that? And then that scene in Attack of the Clones where Padme's like, oh, we can't fall in love. You're a Jedi. Me, I'm a senator. It's like, okay, Padme, again, why? Why can't senators fall in love?
I feel like George Lucas went to confession. I mean, in my mind, he's Catholic, and he went to confession, and the priest was like, "Say 3 Hail Marys and make sure that the Jedi are celibate." As he's writing Phantom Menace.
I wonder if that was like the first argument between Anakin and Padme after all that. They were like, just so you know, you compared being a senator to a Jedi. Like, this is like a lifelong thing. Like, you're up for re-election in a couple years.
Yeah, you have
This is not the same.
A term cycle is not the same at all. And then so they come back together now. Finally, Anakin, Yoda, and Obi-Wan, and they're the same but different. Obi-Wan wants to join. No, wait, sorry. Anakin disagrees with Obi-Wan and Yoda once they tell him what's going on. Anakin wants to join the Jedi who are turning against the army. This is where Anakin understands that he's no longer on the same page with his friends and defects, leaving not only Obi-Wan and Yoda but also leaving Padme and his 2 kids.
So this is episode 2.
Episode 3.
This is episode.
This is
3.
the third one. Sorry, yeah. Again, really top level stuff. Really did not
he
get into
abandons his family?
Yeah, he abandons his family for the betterment, I guess. Of he thinks that he should go off and do this instead.
Because he thinks he should go off and do what?
Go to they're splintering off the Jedi within the
Go
military.
join the military Jedi
Yes,
more?
he's gonna go join them.
Okay.
So he goes and defects with them, and all these Jedi end up becoming the Sith. These are the splinter cell of the Sith then. So the Jedi who turn bad are the Sith, making the Empire even stronger, who all then defect to the Empire. Anakin refuses this entire time, though, to go against his friend and master. But eventually the storylines intertwine. The storylines intertwine and they end up in the same final finale, like Mustafar type battle.
Mm-hmm.
Intertwine at the end of the war. They go to end the end of the war, some sort of like maybe device, much like in the sequel trilogy, where it's like, if they get this device, we're all fucked, kind of the holocron. So they all end up at the same place. Obi-Wan and Yoda attempt to stop Anakin, which makes him feel betrayed on a personal level, because this entire time Anakin said to everybody that he wouldn't go against Obi-Wan and his master, but now since they went against him, he kind of goes against them now. The two friends duel, and Anakin ends up winning. He goes to strike Obi-Wan, but can't do it. This way, when he does strike him in A New Hope, he actually does strike him. So a little
That's
synergy
nice.
there as well. Anakin force pushes his friend against the wall, who blacks out. Anakin has enough time to escape, but on his way out, his ship blows up because Obi-Wan, learning in the same academy that Anakin did, was to always have a failsafe. So just in case Obi-Wan lost the battle with Anakin, he made sure that his ship blew up, which horribly disfigures him, but he ends up surviving and obviously ends up becoming Darth Vader. And that's all I had for my...
I loved that
It
too.
became unraveled
my
as they went on.
expectations for this episode were not as high as they should have been. I loved all three of our pitches. This is so fun.
I know. I want to take aspects of all three now and kind of like combine them together.
I was
Yeah.
thinking I want to like take everyone's pitch and just rotate it one person to the left and have them continue it on from there.
Yeah, mine definitely has a lot of fleshing out to do. I didn't even mention Palpatine. I didn't mention Dooku. I also had this idea that like the person who would be the head of the military Jedi would be like a Qui-Gon Jinn, who ended up dying in the end of Episode 2, which then allows whoever to take over, splinter off, and become the Sith.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So in your situation, Darth Vader, by the time of A New Hope, he will have known that he has a son and daughter out there somewhere.
I guess that's true. Fuck yeah, I didn't think about that.
And what was the clone? What was the clone war?
I was
in
more
your pitch?
concerned about Darth Vader being able to strike Obi-Wan down. That's a huge plot hole that I just made. Rework that a little bit.
What was your clone war thing? They wanted what? Say it again.
They want to clone the Jedi. The Empire wants the Jedi in order to clone them. It's kind of like what Gideon is doing as well with Yoda a little bit.
Mm-hmm. That's a good pitch. All that.
Don't go too
Obi-Wan-
far into it. There's a lot of plot holes.
I like
know.
I like the common theme though of like this like disagreements within the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
Because I think going back now, I'm trying to think of your trilogy, Luke, but I feel like yours had that too a little bit.
Of what?
Disagreement within the Jedi Order.
I don't even remember what mine was now either. I don't know if it did.
Because I feel like that's like that's a really interesting thing to explore instead of like the Jedi's instead of like their gradual downfall, we actually see like a more
Ooh.
visual representation of this splintering of factions where people are more openly like, no, I disagree with this, and
Mhm.
how that kind of leads to it, instead of by the time we see them in the Phantom Menace, where we as the viewer don't know yet that they've basically already fallen at that
Yes.
point. So yeah, that I think that's a really fun thing to explore.
I'm going to go back and say that once Anakin leaves in the third movie to go join the splinter cell of Sith, Jedi who ended up becoming the Sith. Also, it's the dawn of the Sith, I guess, technically, even though Palpatine is a Sith.
Is that the name of the movie?
No, but I like
Should be Dawn of the Sith.
Dawn. I have Dawn of the Jedi in episode 1, but could mirror it.
What was episode 2 and 3?
I didn't name them.
Did you have names for your episodes?
I did not.
I literally kept the episodes the same.
Yeah, you
so
did. That was a
mine
smart call.
Unoriginal. I think you were just about to say
Yes.
this, but just when Anakin leaves, have Padme be pregnant, but he didn't know about it yet.
Yeah, so he thinks it's Obi-Wan's when they see each other again.
Ooh,
Oh,
that's an interesting
Yeah.
dynamic. I love
That would-
the Yoda Obi-Wan Anakin dynamic. That makes so much sense given the original trilogy and nothing else.
Yeah.
And I never would have thought of it.
I just hooked my trilogy on certain things I wanted to fix, like R2 and 3PO with Obi-Wan, and having them have a separate mission, and then also having I always think it was just such a missed opportunity, and I would have loved it in the Kenobi show. I was really hoping they were going to do this. I think I said this when we were watching it. I really wished Anakin won that fight, but couldn't kill Obi-Wan, because I hate how it's always Obi-Wan won. It's like, no, what if he lost and Anakin was just like, he's evil, but he still can't kill his friend.
Mhm.
So then in A New Hope, he does kill his friend, and it's like, how much better would that be, I think? That's like my main thing that I really wanted to try to solve.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I wanted to include a lot more Owen and Beru, and I didn't even get a chance to in my movies as much as I would like to still. But they're prominent characters in the original trilogy as far as the implied past goes.
Mhm.
Like, it's definitely implied that Owen and Anakin knew each other better than we think they did, better than they obviously did in the prequels that we got.
Yeah.
that's true. All he knows about him is his story and like who he was
Just
and what
whatever
he
Obi-Wan
became.
told
but,
him.
yeah.
Some good pitches, I think.
Yeah,
And
that was a
we
lot
all-
of fun.
It's so fun to put yourself in that shoes and try to think like we said, it's 1999. All we know is the original trilogy. Like everything else is fair game, basically. Because obviously all of our pitches ran afoul of like all of the EU that was out at the time,
Yeah.
right? But so did the original prequel trilogy. So
Yeah.
that was just say the prequel trilogy. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that a lot more than I thought I would. Those
Me
were
too.
some good ideas.
And this is going to seem out of nowhere. Does everybody have any presents?
I do. This one is Max's.
So we're so spoiled on this podcast.
And this one is Matthew's. Go ahead, open them, guys. They're asymmetrical this time. Normally, whenever we give gifts, they're the same gift to either person, but this time, well, you'll see.
Oh! What?
Go ahead, you first.
What was yours?
Matt, what'd you get?
A Force for Thought t-shirt,
Ooh.
which you can now buy on our website. No, I'm just kidding. That's a lot of promises. And a really small shirt I don't think I'll fit in, but I appreciate it.
Oh shoot,
No,
that one
I'm
must have
just kidding.
shrunk.
It must be for my child, who I have at this point.
Yes.
It is not in my wife's stomach.
Oh, that is crazy to think about.
Oh wow, that just blew my mind.
He could be
Yeah,
wearing it.
as I said that, I was like, "Oh my god, I will have a baby at this point."
Oh my god.
He won't be wearing. It's a 3 to 6 month T-shirt, but
The boy's big. I think he's gonna be. I think he's gonna
maybe?
be right around 10 pounds. Not that this is a.
no.
Also, he could just wear
I
a
think
big
so.
shirt.
He can wear. It's a
He
sleeping
gets to
shirt.
wear it long.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Thank you. Did your wife make these?
Yes, she did.
And Luke got me an assortment of Dr. Peppers, which I really appreciate because I do like Dr. Pepper, and I already have a Force for Thought shirt, so this was perfect.
My wife made Max a Force for Thought shirt for our family's gift exchange at Christmas.
Oh, I love this.
And
This is so
so-
quality.
Yeah, she's good at it.
You know,
But I didn't want to give Matt a present without giving Max one. And so,
I mean, like when I said assortment, I got Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar, Dr. Pepper Cream and Soda Zero Sugar, and Dr. Pepper Diet Dr. Pepper.
how do you feel about next week's episode? Instead of the Force for Thought, we taste all of those blind and see if we can make sure we can see which one's which.
I'm pretty sure Luke is like a Dr. Pepper connoisseur.
that would be the easiest thing ever.
Oh, Luke, I want to do it so badly then with you.
Okay.
Also,
I mean,
should we
I'm
start
down to do
selling
it
these?
right now.
Is Hannah down to sell? I feel like look how quality this is. I'm so excited to wear this.
I don't think our fans could afford them given how much I charge for her labor.
Classic Watto over here.
These are cold too.
Yeah.
These were just sitting in that bag over there for the last 3 hours.
They were in my fridge for several weeks before that, so.
Well, the longer they're in the fridge, the longer they lost outside of it. Does anybody have any Force for Thought? Thank you so much, Luke. Seriously,
You're
though.
welcome.
Love's little baby shirt.
So cute. Can't wait to meet him.
Levi, I'm excited to come home and see you.
Well,
a major-
it's not a name reveal right now because he's already been born.
He's already born at this point.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
It was a reveal
Um,
for us.
You-
It seems significant.
It's not. You both knew this. We talked about this a couple weeks ago.
But no, I thought this was a reveal. It felt significant.
Oh. Well, just when I say that name, just cut to your reaction. 'Cause I'm sure it's great.
I do have Force for Thought. It's still Phantom Menace month, which I know we didn't talk about the Phantom Menace that much today, but the Force for Thought comes from the end of the pod race. Watto forks over his, slave Anakin to Qui-Gon and says, "I lost everything." And Qui-Gon says, "Whenever you gamble, my friend, eventually you'll lose." The deal was that Qui-Gon gets Anakin and Watto gets all of the prize money less the cost of the parts they need for their ship. So Watto lost everything despite winning almost all of the prize money from the Boonta Eve Classic. That is some heavy gambling he was in.
That's true.
Like, it's one thing to lose everything. It's another thing to win the lottery and lose everything in the same moment.
Hey,
So the implication is he had other side bets that still didn't hit.
A lot of other side bets that didn't hit. Yes.
yeah,
He bet the house on the Sebulba.
He bet the house plus a lot of debt.
That's not good. That's true. I mean, it doesn't feel like that's what Watto is. Like, he's kind of a heavy gambler.
Oh, I'm not saying it's out of character. I just don't think it's really appreciated how much gambling debt he was in.
Yeah. Can you imagine if like FanDuel was around then? He would have been fucked.
Oh yeah, just floating around his house, placing bets on every single pod race.
So he won the prize money less the cost of the parts,
Mm-hmm.
and he lost a slave. But that was just his bet to Qui-Gon. And yet, when Qui-Gon comes to get his reward, basically. Watto says, like, oh, it doesn't count. The bet wasn't fair. And then Qui-Gon says, like, oh, maybe we can let the Hutts settle this dispute or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very generous bet. I mean, I know, like you said, he lost money overall because of all of his other bets, but
Yeah, I mean,
the
Qui-Gon.
fact that him losing is just losing a slave and winning a little bit less than the total prize amount of the Boonta Eve Classic.
Yeah, it's all in those side bets because, like Qui-Gon said, either way you win. And if Watto didn't make any other side bets, it was a win-win situation for him.
That dude just had so many parlays going. He's like, this is the one leg that didn't hit.
It must have been.
Do you know what the odds were on Bed Quadranaros not getting off the starting line?
Also, Luke, I want to mention this to you. Every single day of my life since we've had this episode, I think about your Force for Thought, or maybe it was an intro joke, where we know what Boonta Eve is, but not Boonta. I think about that all the time. We should pitch a trilogy about that alone.
What day did Phantom Menace come out? Was it May 25th?
I want to say it was.
I think so. But on this rewatch, I noticed Anakin refers to it as the big Boonta race tomorrow. He did not say Boonta Eve.
They say it takes place on Boonta Eve at some point.
I think he's just like a dumb kid.
It could be. I mean, he's a slave. He's probably illiterate.
Well, let's just say May 26th is Boonta.
Well, yeah, everyone mark your calendars and celebrate Boonta however you feel fit. Since no one knows how to do it. I mean, maybe gamble a little bit.
No, don't
That
gamble.
was the opposite of the message. If you gamble, you're bound to lose.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Follow us on social medias. Reach out to us on our email, and we'll see you next week.
See you, Sammy.